On Thursday morning in Barcelona, George Russell walked into a press conference and said he hadn't looked at a single piece of data all weekend. Not some of the data, not the data from one session. All of it. Zero telemetry, zero sector comparisons with Antonelli. Zero breakdown of where the deficit was coming from. He'd driven the car on feel and trusted what his hands were telling him and taken a risk that a modern Formula One driver almost never takes. The result? Pole position by 0.3. His biggest qualifying margin since Australia. Everyone called it copying Verstappen's strategy. And they were wrong. What Russell did in Barcelona wasn't copy Verstappen. What he did was stop copying Antonelli. And the difference between those two things is the difference between a driver borrowing someone else's identity and a driver finally finding his own again. And if this is the kind of Formula One storytelling you're here for, stories built from expert analysis, insider reactions, and the details most people overlook, consider subscribing. We do this every week. All right, let's dive in. Go back to Monaco, qualifying 3 weeks earlier. Russell, in the same car Antonelli just put on pole, ended up 6th, 0.4 adrift. On a track where 0.4 is a different postcode. He said afterwards, "Nothing's clicking. My driving style's just not working with the car at the moment." That sentence. From the man who won the opening race of the season from pole position. To understand what happened between that Monaco Thursday and this Barcelona Thursday, you have to understand what the 2026 regulations actually did to George Russell's driving. Not his results. His driving. The new power units and aerodynamic philosophy rewarded a very specific set of physical inputs at the wheel. And those inputs, according to technical analysis from people who've spent this season studying how the field has adapted, align almost perfectly with how Kimi Antonelli naturally drives, and sit in direct tension with how Russell has always driven. Antonelli's style is aggressive, but precise, constant small corrections, working with the car rather than imposing a shape on it. The 2026 cars are smaller, lower downforce, physically more reactive. They reward a driver who feels his way through a corner. Antonelli commits even when he's not certain about grip, energizes the front tires without paying the price with the rears. Russell does the opposite. Later braking, harder entry, trying to dominate the corner rather than flow through it. For most of his career, that approach produced exceptional results. But in 2026, according to analysis published by The Race Ahead of Barcelona, his style has been working against the car. The way he loads the tires at corner entry was costing him in the exact moments the car needed something else. Russell knew this. The data told him. His engineers told him. From China onwards, he started trying to change. To wire new habits into a driving style built over 15 years of professional racing. To become, in the middle of a championship season, a different kind of driver. For several races, that attempt produced the worst version of Russell anyone in the paddock had seen. China, struggling. Miami, convincingly outpaced. Monaco qualifying. 6th, 0.4 adrift, something visibly broken in how the lap was put together. Each session, he was fighting his own instincts as well as the car. 2 battles simultaneously, and he was losing both. By Monaco race day, the situation had collapsed. Caught behind Hajar in the early laps. An undercut that triggered a pit lane speeding penalty through a software issue. A drive-through that ended any chance of points. 12th, championship gap to Antonelli. 68 points, in the media pen. Standing in the late afternoon heat still wearing his race suit. I'm beyond frustration now. I'm just struggling to comprehend how this season has panned out. According to people familiar with what happened inside the Mercedes garage in the days between Monaco and Barcelona, those words were a turning point. Because Russell saying it publicly opened a conversation that had been happening carefully and indirectly for weeks. Wolff's response was directed at his driver as much as at the press. Formula One is about physics, not mystics. You don't unlearn how to drive. What followed was the closest thing to a full reset a driver can attempt mid-season. He stopped looking at data. Russell told motorsport.com after qualifying, "I've not looked at a single piece of data the whole weekend. I've just driven the car and trusted my instincts, and that was a bit of a risk because these cars are so complicated. But that's what I've been doing with my team for the last few races. A Formula One driver, in a championship season, deliberately removing himself from the analytical process the sport has been built around for 30 years, and producing a lap of 1 minute, 14.679 seconds. Pole by 3/10. Antonelli, 4/10 faster in Monaco qualifying, was 3/10 slower in Barcelona. Same car, different weekend, different Russell. According to sources familiar with the atmosphere inside Mercedes' garage that Saturday evening, it was the first time since the opening races the mood felt genuinely shifted rather than carefully maintained. Something had unlocked. The people who noticed it first weren't looking at the timing screens. They were watching how Russell walked into the debrief. The race on Sunday added another layer. Hamilton won on 3 stops, aided by a virtual safety car. He was faster, and he deserved it. But what Russell did with the race he had, positioning aggressively when gaps appeared, reading traffic in the way notably absent since the early rounds, looked like a different driver from the one who stumbled to 12th in Monaco. The Verstappen comparison circulating afterwards isn't entirely wrong. There was something Verstappen adjacent in how Russell attacked his opportunities. The willingness to commit before the outcome was certain. But according to people who study Russell's race approach closely, the comparison misses what was actually happening. Verstappen acts on instinct because instinct is his primary language. What Russell did in Barcelona was Russell's intelligence, his ability to read a race, understand where time and position would come from, construct a strategy from first principles, operating without the interference of the self-correction he'd been attempting for weeks. He wasn't Verstappen, he was Russell. And Russell, when he's fully himself, is formidably good at this. Antonelli retired in Barcelona with a power unit failure. Hamilton beat both Mercedes drivers on pace. The honest read is that Russell had his best weekend of the season at the exact moment his main rival had his worst. Standings: Antonelli 156 points, Hamilton 115, Russell 106. The gap to the top is 50 points. 16 races remain. That's meaningful. It's also not enough. According to people familiar with conversations inside the Mercedes garage afterwards, the internal view is that the reset was real, and that the car set up for Russell's natural approach produced a meaningful performance difference. What it didn't resolve is the question sitting under this entire season: whether Russell can beat Antonelli when both are at their best. Monaco said he can't. Barcelona said the gap is smaller than Monaco implied. Neither answer is definitive. Drop it in the comments. Is what we saw in Barcelona the real George Russell coming back? Or is it the version of him that appears when Antonelli has a retirement and the pressure briefly lifts? Because the answer to that question is the answer to whether this championship is still a fight.